What is up, YouTube? After 2 months of shelter in place, we decided to continue with the series with my good friend Ian St. Pierre. I met Ian in college, we played rugby together, and now he's a software engineer for the UMass system. He goes over his experience and life so far, and enjoy the show.
Brother Ian?
How are you, man?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
So tell me a little more about you. Who is Ian?
About
How were you brought up?
How was I brought up?
Yeah.
So I'm less interesting than some of your other guests. I kind of a boring, story. I was born in Worcester, Mass, and then I've always lived in Uxbridge, which is slightly south of there. Small town. I graduated high school with like 88 kids in my class, like really small high school. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, and then went off to school for computer science where I met you. Yeah.
So going from not knowing what to do and then straight to computer science.
Oh man, so my dad's a nurse, and my mom was a nurse too, and so I always kind of like, they would always tell me stuff about like what they were doing, and like, there's all these fancy medical words that they make you sound smart when you know what they mean and stuff like that. So I did look into like, not necessarily nursing, but like the medical profession. And actually, before I sent out my applications for computer science to a bunch of schools, I was touring schools thinking about going pre-med, and I wanted to be a surgeon for a little bit. But then, I don't really like school all that much. So I decided to go for computer science instead. I've always been kind of, into computers, into taking stuff apart, putting it back together, things like that.
I can see you as a nurse. Oh no.
Yeah.
Like Nurse Ian.
It's my glowing personality, isn't it?
Dude, that'd be insane. Like, have you ever thought about sort of like what you would have turned out if you had chosen that path, or chosen?
If I went down the medical career path, well, I'd still be in school now, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't really know what I would be doing. I think I probably would have went to a different school, because there's not really a great pre-med track where we went, or I at least didn't know a lot of people going there for pre-med. But yeah, I don't quite know what would have happened if I ended up doing that. But I'm glad that I went the path that I did. Definitely happy with it.
Can you just imagine like all that time studying? Like,
I'm sure it's gotta feel great when you finish though. Like such a sigh of relief after you went to school for that long.
But still, even after the school, there's like the I think
you get to take exams.
Yeah.
And all that stuff.
And then after the exams, there's I forgot what the name of it is, where you stay at the hospital. I don't know if Grey's Anatomy is.
Residency?
Yeah, residency, that stuff. And then
it's almost like an internship, if you think about it, for computer science stuff. Like you go to a hospital and you kind of like go around and follow people who've been doing what you're trying to do and learn from them and things like that.
But isn't that one of those mandatory things? Like you can't really go as a
Yeah, you won't be able to become a doctor or whatever until you do that.
But with computer science though.
I graduated. So I walked across the stage. I slept at school for the very last time that night. Woke up the next morning, brought all my stuff home, stayed home Saturday, Sunday, started my job Monday.
It's beautiful. Like it's beautiful what tech has been able to. Like even now with the corona and all that stuff, you got everything that's virtual.
It's nuts, yeah. And I think there was a huge. People were leaning on technology a lot in more recent years. Things have been going more digital all in all. But I think that this pandemic and like what's been going on is really forcing people and ultimately changing a bunch of different landscapes in business. So
we're in the middle of it.
I know. We're here to build some stuff for it. So
how does that feel? The fact that you're able to sort of take what you've learned and actually able to apply it and build stuff with it.
Yeah, it's awesome. I actually, so when I was still working for Cumberland Farms, the last project that I helped on was helping them do curbside pickup through the mobile app for SmartPay. So my piece of it wasn't for the phone, it was for the registers to show alerts when they got new orders and things like that. But, being able to kind of take my skills, the stuff that I learned in school and the stuff that I learned on the job, and being able to like actually fit it to like this global pandemic, and you know, do my small part to help people still get their coffee and stuff like that. You know, it's good. It's a good feeling for sure.
Being useful.
Yeah.
Speaking of, so what exactly did you take care of at Cumberland Farms? Like I know you
What
mentioned that.
What was my responsibility?
Yeah, like what did you do? What was the day-to-day like, and why did it change?
So my role was full stack developer, and I built a lot of internal tools for the business users and things like that, and also some automations. But mostly I was building some like internal web applications for like the different aspects of the business. So like the financial department, fuel pricing, things like that. So instead of them like entering a bunch of data on spreadsheets, because you know everybody loves Excel, they love to abuse Excel. I could automate some of those things. I could give them a nice UI to, you know, play around with, move some data around and things like that. But that was a lot of what I did.
Okay. So basically making it more like focused onto what Cumberland Farms is doing rather than the general purpose Excel of just
Right. Kind of automating where we can, so that you know the business users can kind of take their specialized knowledge and go do other things instead of just data entry, because that was a lot of time spent doing that. So fully automating some of those things, and then also giving them the ability to kind of manipulate that data as well if it wasn't fully automated. So giving them a tool to visualize it, move the things around, see how it would play out.
Have you ever tried like thinking of how, like, I don't know if they did this in before you implemented it, but the amount of time it took for the data entry before you implemented whatever it is you did, and then the amount of time after, like.
Oh yeah, the amount of time saved.
Yeah.
There was one process that was taking one person a whole week, so like 40 hours. This was like their job, and we completely automated it. And that person was able to you know, kind of join the bigger team and like get back into the discussions of like what that team's purpose was to do, instead of just being a data entry person, which was good.
Yeah, that's the beauty of automation.
Yeah.
So you're able to do other things.
Mm-hmm.
This is another thing, like the automation taking over and all that stuff. So, but what's your thought on that? Like automation taking over. You personally contributed.
Yeah. So obviously the big negative that everybody thinks about is like, oh, well, if you automate everything, everybody's gonna lose a job.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely gonna be that subset of people where their role is just phased out completely. Whether it be some scripts, some robots, some sort of machine learning, artificial intelligence, whatever automated, you know, medium that actually solves that problem. Some people will eventually lose their jobs. But I think that, I mean, at least we're on the good side of it. Like we're the people creating those things. But I think that there's lots of things that can get automated that are going to save a lot of businesses a bunch of time and money.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that people will lose their jobs. Like for that instance that I was telling you at my previous job, like they were able to repurpose that worker, because now they have an FTE, a full-time employee that they can dedicate to something else, because that process was automated.
So resource reallocation. It's like, since he's no longer taking care of that, you could,
Right.
like you said, go into something that needs an actual, that can't be automated.
Right, that needs a human.
Yeah, and there's also that aspect of it's getting better for the better, because if you look at farming, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before, there's a lot of talk about like how before a lot of people spent their time just like farming because it required a lot of manual labor, but with all these vehicles and all that stuff, it takes one person to sort of just take care of all of that, and then we went into other things.
My favorite, well, two favorites. My favorite is, have you ever seen what's that space movie with Matthew McConaughey? Interstellar.
Oh yeah.
You see how he automated the combine so it goes through the field by itself? Like
yeah.
That stuff. I mean, I don't know much about like the agricultural, you know, part of that, but like that's pretty cool. And then one of like another cool, like, it's not really farming, but like, have you seen what they did with like image recognition and like sorting and chopping vegetables when they come down the conveyor belt? So they have this company gets a bunch of like cucumbers and tomatoes and other vegetables, right? And I don't exactly know how it works, but how I would picture that it works is it was either a pre-trained model or it has something that was able to tell this is a bad tomato, this is a bad cucumber, this is a good one, this is a good one, right? And it comes speeding through at like 30 miles an hour on this conveyor belt, and there's like 20 blades, and it chops up the good ones and sweeps through the bad ones to go to a different conveyor belt at the same time, and it has like a 99% accuracy rate, which is crazy.
Yeah,
Crazy,
like a
crazy.
video of that. Like
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Definitely check it out. It's beautiful. Like there are certain things that it's just like the machine can do it so much faster than you, and it's why not take advantage of it?
Exactly.
Just do something else, like math. You know,
Math. Yeah.
like there's a lot of things in math that you don't really need to know anymore. Well, you just know you have to know the concept of it, like addition, that you're adding two things together. But big numbers, when you're adding them up, you can just plug it into a calculator
And you're good to go.
you're good to go.
You're good to go. The computer's not going to make a mistake.
Yeah.
But the human needs to know how to tell the computer to do the math most of the time.
Yeah.
So.
That interaction. So why leave Cumbies? Like, what happened?
So they were an awesome company to work for. I really feel like I leveled up working there. You know, kind of starting senior year, I really didn't even want to be a developer. Like, I didn't want to code for my job. I didn't quite know what I wanted to do with my computer science degree, but I knew that I didn't want to do coding. Like, I spent the whole summer going or looking for summer internships into senior year. I saw a bunch of like, oh, we want a web developer, we want a software engineer, and I was like, I don't see myself doing that. And then I got my senior design project, and I was able to use React Native for that, and it was just an awesome experience going from like all those classes that we took, like, oh, sort this array and print out the sorted thing in the console. I'm like, cool, black and white, and then I learned how to turn it green. I'm like, wow. you know what I mean?
You're happier now.
So it was cool, and it's definitely good stuff to learn. But like going from that to building a mobile app, like a cross-platform mobile app, and being able to like see that step-by-step development, like really got me hooked. So that was a quick side tangent, and I had already had an internship on a different team, not the development team at Cumberland Farms, so I was able to get in there. They treated me very well. I was able to learn so much. They had a contracting company called Result Stack. Check them out. Awesome company. But they have a bunch of senior engineers that have been doing this for such a long time, and they really love to share their knowledge. They would do a bunch of lunch and learns that they would invite us to and things like that. So it was really good to do that. But moving forward in that job, it was good. I don't think it would have been a poor decision to stay there at all. But the opportunity that I got to work for the UMass president's office just seemed like a better step to kind of get ahead in my career, because now I'm a level up, so I'm from level 1 at Cumbies to a level 2 now.
Okay.
So it was a chance not only to immediately advance my career, but I think in the long run it'll give me more options. I hate going to school, but now that I work for the university, I have some benefits if I want to go take some graduate courses and things like that.
Speaking of, you going back?
I think so. I talked to Vilova about if it made sense and things like that, because all I had really heard was you don't really need a master's in, well, you don't need a master's in computer science. Okay, you don't even need a bachelor's in computer science if you really don't want one. It definitely helps you get an interview and things like that. And furthermore, a master's will help you get an interview more than a bachelor's will, because people like that piece of paper. But she kind of mentioned that generally there's a salary increase because you're more qualified and things like that. And there's a bunch of other things that I can do. I would be picked out if I wanted to go into more leadership roles, and eventually I would like to do that later on in my career. But so I think it makes sense. So I think I'm gonna try and go back.
So I want that. It sort of slipped my mind. The part of not wanting to code anymore. Why? What? Because you mentioned that one of the phases that you were going through was you didn't even know if you wanted to be a developer anymore, right? And you wanted to take a sort of different role, or did I get that?
When I going into senior year, I didn't want to code.
Okay,
like
yeah,
I saw myself maybe doing like being a sysadmin or something like that, or like a network admin.
So why was that a thing? Like why'd you not want to code anymore? Go from those 3 years.
Well, I think that I think that coding teaches people how to think very creatively, compared to the way that they teach you in like public school and things like that. Like you're kind of regimented. You learn how to solve math problems. You learn how to solve science problems, and programming is like a superset of math in my mind. But the way that you need to solve the problems really teaches your brain to think in a different way, and I think that that can be applied to things outside the realm of math and science completely. Like I had to take chemistry because I couldn't fit physics in my schedule, and I used how I would solve programming problems to solve like balancing equations, for example. So I'd be like, okay, here's my variable that I need to solve for. Like, how am I going to write an algorithm, quote unquote, to figure out what element that needs to be. So I didn't think that taking computer science and then going to be like a sysadmin is a poor role. I don't really know how else you would get there because it's still within the realm of computer science. So I don't know what path you take to be a sysadmin otherwise. Maybe you take like a 18-month course or whatever to learn special like regimented things that would be good for that role. But I think having that more rounded knowledge in the background of computer science would help me anyway.
Okay. So just to clarify, you came in not really knowing what you wanted to do, and then so you.
I knew I wanted to do something with computers.
Okay, something with computers,
Yeah.
and then towards the end of your junior year, going into your senior year, right? You wanted to do system administration, so sysadmin.
Yeah.
But then you got through your senior design project, and then you realized
I got halfway through my senior
halfway
design
through,
project. Yeah.
and then you realized that coding is
Yeah.
avoidable.
It specifically like mobile development and web development.
Okay.
That's like really what brought me in. Just because it's like it's such a quick turnaround to see like something that you worked on and then have it visually represented. You know what I mean? Like you start up a quick React app and then you already have stuff on a page that you can view. So it was that like quick satisfaction that really dragged me into that. It made it easy to learn because I wanted to learn the things. It was rewarding.
So it's like the time between the work put in versus the output was basically. I mean,
that feedback loop from writing a piece of code to seeing it is very small.
Especially with it. So would that mean that you're mostly into, because those kind of sort of seeing something represented on the screen quickly is sort of like it approaches front end development a lot more. So is that something that you're primarily interested in, or is it?
See, so no, you would think that, right? Because like that's really what dragged me in. But you know, I have a little bit over a year's experience now, and doing all these different projects and things like that, I actually find myself more interested in the back end stuff, like data transfer, manipulating data, making APIs. Like making APIs is my thing. I love making APIs. I love working with other people's APIs. I think that provides so much benefit for so many businesses. But I actually find myself trending more towards back end, like writing APIs and middlewares and things like that.
So, I know that you consider yourself full stack right now, but if you had to choose, would it be that layer, that sort of back end?
If I had to choose, I would try to get a role that was more back end oriented and like more DevOps oriented. Because I really got into some DevOps stuff more recently. That's interesting to me.
So how much do you know about like Jenkins and all that stuff?
Yeah. So like CI/CD pipelines, automated testing, stuff like that. Containers, container orchestration, like all that stuff is so interesting to me. But
how much have you done with containers? Like.
So I've built a few like full stack applications that run. The front end is in a container, the back end's in a container, and they can talk to each other in a Docker container. I haven't gotten into, I played around with like Kubernetes and stuff like that, but I didn't really have a use case to completely use it in either role yet. I hope I do soon because they're so cool. But you know, kind of baby steps. I at least have some stuff I've played with it, but I'd like to get more into it.
It's definitely cool when you're like, because I've been looking into it too, especially Kubernetes, because of scaling, right? The reason why it's so useful is because you just have, let's say that your application gets a million users out of nowhere, right? It's able to automatically scale, and you have all the resources required to.
Yeah, you can set up your ingress so that that automatically load balances for you. You can just horizontally scale all your apps, and you're good.
and a lot of big companies like there was a Google recruiter I was talking to, and he said that when you get into the later stages of interviewing, they for sort of the senior roles, they go into, so for the junior roles it's mostly coding, algorithm, and data structures, and for the more senior roles they go into system design, so stuff like design Apple, design like not Apple but design like Yelp, or design Facebook, or design
Like, tell me how you think that works.
yeah. So you go into that system design and the load balancing and all that stuff, they become definitely interesting.
I think that's one of the most important things. Like, I understand for those big like FANG companies, it is like they're doing some really innovative stuff, and you kind of need to have those core principles for like algorithms and data structures down. And studying for those things is painful and draining, man. Like I took the Facebook interview, the first one. I got contacted. That was the most stressful thing I ever did in my entire life. I looked like I just ran a mile. I hit stage. I was so anxious. It was so tough. But I think that systems design is like a huge thing for like web developers and things like that, because like, yeah, you can make it look nice, yeah, you can get data from somewhere, but ultimately if the data isn't moving quick enough, if it's not moving efficient enough, if you don't have enough things to be able to have multiple requests at a time, millions of requests at a time, like something like Netflix, like if they didn't have the redundancy in their data, if they didn't have the ability to service millions of requests at a time, like that impacts your users. If it impacts your users, you're not going to have a good business. So I fully agree with having an interview like that. I think that's more important at that level than your core concepts.
It's beautiful. Like, it's beautiful how like the more you work into it, the more it sort of gets clear onto how it's implemented and all that stuff. So I don't know. It's cool to be behind the scenes.
Yeah.
How they work. So it just gives you it just makes you think, how the hell does YouTube, like, how are they able to do all of that stuff?
Crazy,
man. Like, it doesn't take 2 seconds for you to load up a video and just watch it, when there are like millions of other people doing that too.
Right. And people uploading videos that will be there at some point, and that's crazy. Yeah, they must send so much data back and forth.
Yeah. So basically, just to summarize it, Cumberland Farms was a good first step, and now you're taking
Absolutely.
that sort of next step in your career where it's I don't think you went into too much details into how like what you want to do with it, or is that something?
I think that it's so I'm moving out of retail IT, so I've been a quote unquote professional developer for 1 year, right? Like I've been paid, I had a degree for 1 year. But I've been in the retail IT scope for 2 years because I did my internship with them for a year too. So a lot of my knowledge, a lot of the problems that I had to solve were just scoped towards retail IT, and registers and gas and things like that. Like those are the problems that I had to solve. But now I'm moving into higher ed, and I think that there's a lot of benefit from the things that I'm interested in, the things that I'd like to do that can benefit that company, and I think that it will give me the pathway to kind of advance into more project lead roles, team lead roles, senior developer roles. I think it'll give me a more clear pathway to get to those things.
Right. Speaking of those different roles, I feel like the higher you get in sort of those roles, kind of sort of management roles, the less you have to
Physically code.
Yeah. So is that something you're aiming for?
I think eventually, yeah. Like I'll probably never stop coding, because again, I think it trains your brain to think in a very unique way, and I think that's applicable to many things. But like it's tough because like right now I'm pretty confident with the stack that I'm using, but like in a couple of years that could change, right? And not to say that I won't go learn that new thing, figure out how to implement it, figure out how to ask my boss to implement that thing so that we can kind of keep up with the rest of the world. But I think that at some point that's left to people like our age, to come out of school, have that fresh mindset, have that fresh new set of skills. and kind of let them roll with it and use my experience for things like system design or how this function should work, how this algorithm should work. That's kind of my role at that point, because I've had that experience, and that new person may have really great skills, but they just haven't seen the number of problems that we've seen at that point.
So basically what I'm hearing is that you're shifting more towards an architecture role rather than.
Yeah, similar. I think like a pipe dream for me eventually is to be like a CTO or a CIO at a company, to be able to kind of shape the next few years of technology and the problems that we're trying to solve at whatever company that may be at the time. That's really interesting to me. I think that it would be fun. I think it would be, it's definitely going to be tough.
Yeah.
Definitely going to be tough with a lot of responsibility, but yeah, that's something that, maybe down the line after I've had years of experience, that would be something that I'd be interested in.
So one thing that I've picked up on people like the Gates, the Jobs, the Elon Musk, is that at around our age, right? That's when they started developing something that's like it started setting up the stepping stones for something bigger, right? Elon Musk, I think that's the time he started X, which I think it was a mapping company or something along those lines at our age, so in 20s. What's his name? Jobs. That's when he started getting into contact with Wozniak and doing a bunch of things. Gates, I think he started. I think Microsoft went public before he was 30 along those lines. So it's basically the reason why I'm telling you all this is because they started with.
You have a business idea.
Yeah.
All right. Accept.
No, not me. I don't have a business idea. I'm saying you.
Yeah.
Why don't you come up with a business idea? Why don't you just sit down for a week and just think about what would be something that would be useful to like a bunch of members of society,
Right.
Mm-hmm. So have you ever thought of just sitting down and trying to come up with that? And
yeah, I think that definitely it's not out of the realm of possibility that I may start something on my own. I don't want to say I'm not creative, because I can be in certain situations, but I think that it's really, you may not have, or you may have a really good idea and you may execute it really, really well, but like that in 362, that's that other Volova class that we had to take. Do you remember doing the midterm where you had to read about the video game companies? And it was a correlation between how much they spent in marketing, how well those marketing plans went, and how well the company did financially after that?
I don't remember it too well.
So the point of that article was to see like the dichotomy between a game that may be really bad, like for example Sea of Thieves when it came out. Like it had so much hype behind it because their marketing plan was insane. They had really good clips from the game, they had really good videos from the game, they had a great demo. And it sold a bunch of copies because of that, because so many people were so hyped about it, right? But like it was really bad. It was really, really bad in release. So where I'm going with that is like you may have an awesome idea, you may have created like a really, really good algorithm that's so innovative and things like that, and that's like the backbone of this idea for this company. But you may not be able to market it well enough for it to take off and for it to like sustain you financially and to like foster growth for that company. So it's tough. The market's saturated, right? There's all these people that there's literally places in Silicon Valley where people go and they pay rent to live at these places, and they just sit there and think of ideas to try and become like the next startup. Like they try and become the next Apple. They try and become the next Uber and things like that. So there's people that literally just sit there and try and do that. So it's tough. You kind of have to get a lucky break almost at some points.
But don't you think that even before now, even though it's been like it publicized and all that stuff in Silicon Valley and all that stuff, but don't you think that even at the times of those greats, right, there were, I'm sure that there were other people who were trying to come up with the next big thing, right? Because even though we didn't have software as prevalent as we do now, but there were other evolving spaces, right? There's automotives and
There's
all that stuff.
there's the guy who created the intermittent wiper blade, right? Like that guy just like iterated on an already great idea and made a bunch of money from it. He's like, oh, the wiper blade has one speed, on or off, right? And he's like, what if it was slow, medium, and fast? And then he made a bunch of money, right? So it's not to say that something doesn't come out and I'm like, hey, this would be a great addition to this. Like, this would be a thing that I could create that would make this thing better. Maybe that thing already exists, maybe it doesn't exist. But that's also another way that, you know, you can kind of break out your own thing.
So why don't you try it? Like, even if it doesn't.
You make it sound so easy.
I'm not saying it is easy, but hey, nothing. I don't think that anything that's worthwhile is easy. You know.
True.
So
very true. I agree.
And these are the times to try it, because there's a saying that goes, the best time to try something, to start something was 10 years ago, but the second best time is now. So
yeah,
I don't know. It would be cool to see like, I don't know, an idea that you had and start fostering it, and then 10 years down the line it actually becomes something. You know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm sure that feeling is like nothing else at all. So.
Have you ever considered going to one of those places, like Silicon Valley and where it's like tech?
Yeah, so when I was applying for jobs, I applied to like 200 places, man. I was applying, like, I would go to class and then I would come home and just apply to places on LinkedIn, apply to places wherever. And I set it for like the Boston area and then also Silicon Valley, because I didn't mind moving. Like a lot of, I don't think companies are doing that anymore because I work from home.
Yeah.
But a lot of places would kind of pay for your living expenses to move you out there to get you started. So I had no second thoughts about moving, you know, across the country. It's still in the back of my mind. I think right now this is kind of where I need to be to skill up. That's not to say that I'm in the shower one day and I'm like, I got a great idea, and you know that kind of takes off. But it's still in the back of my mind. I think it'd be fun. It'd be a good opportunity.
Go to Cali, dude. I want to visit there one day, see how it is.
I have family out there. Way back when. Yeah, I've been a couple times actually. I went there for spring break senior year because I stayed with one of my cousins. So flew out there and then stayed out there for free.
How was it?
It's awesome. It's awesome, man. I love it.
Well, what's like a striking difference between Cali and here and sort of the New England area?
I think the way people think is different. Like out here, people are kind of, I don't want to say stuck in their ways, but like they've done things this way for a long time, and they're going to continue to do that. And that's not just computer science. That's just people in the Northeast. I feel like people in the Northeast are a lot meaner too. To be so, sometimes myself included. I don't know. The West Coast, it just has a different vibe. Like everything feels more relaxed. And maybe that's just because of the places that I had been in. The traffic is nuts, absolutely insane. They have the craziest thing to me is I had to drive out there, right? So like the big highways have like 5 or 6 lanes wide, and it's crazy. And you're always in the wrong lane, no matter what lane. You're always in the wrong lane. But the craziest thing is when you go on the on-ramp to get on the highway, during peak traffic times, they actually have lights on the on-ramp that you have to stop at, and they only let one car go at a time.
Oh, wow.
Which was crazy. I had no idea. I was like, well, like, why is this a red lane when I'm trying to get on the highway? So.
That's insane. Yeah. I heard they have the five lane roads in Texas too. It's just.
Maybe, yeah, I've never been there.
Would you ever go Texas?
They got rattlesnakes, they got scorpions. It's hot, I burn in the shade, man. It's not my environment. But, you know, some of the big, I don't know if you can necessarily call them tech hubs, but like some of the bigger cities like Austin and Houston and things like that, like it's a great place to be a developer because like the pay is slightly, it's less than here. Like Boston and California and New York are like the highest paying for computer science, software engineers and things like that. But like houses out there are so cheap. It's so cheap. You can get like a 3,000 square foot house for like 200 grand, 150 grand. It's nuts. Up here, 3,000 square foot house is like 550 minimum.
You've been looking into buying houses? Well,
Yeah.
a house? How's
Yeah.
that going?
It's tough. I gotta pay off my car first. That's my first thing. I'm paying out my student loans. That's rough. But yeah, I've been looking to move out. Not to say that I'm not grateful that my parents let me stay with them and things like that, because I absolutely am. But I was kind of on my own for 4 years at school,
Yeah.
and I kind of missed that independence.
Yeah.
You know, so
I feel like that.
it's good.
But if you're mentioning, it's because the California thing, it sounds like something that you'd want to do within the next 5 years, right? Or is that not something that's within the...
It could be within the next 5 years. I don't think that that's too soon.
So why already buy a house if you're gonna live in it for about, I don't know, less than 10 years, you know? You know what I'm trying to get at? Like,
I'll renovate it and resell it.
oh,
Make some money off of it. Why not, right? My dad's like a handyman. He knows how to build stuff. He was an electrician before he was a nurse. So he worked in like a lot of construction areas. So and he loves making work for himself, dude. Like right now on the weekend, while he's helping every day with in the infectious disease department, helping with COVID-19 and stuff like that. On the weekends, he just like digs holes in the backyard to like make retaining walls and like build a new deck.
retaining wall?
Yeah.
What are retaining walls?
It's like the way that the land behind my house is pitched, like the water just flows and it floods.
Mm-hmm.
So he's fixing it and then putting a wall so that the water stops there and then all flows into the woods.
Okay.
But he'll just randomly he'll be like, I need this,
Yeah.
and he'll just start doing that. He loves to do it. So, could buy like a fixer upper and make some money off of it after a couple of years. Not a bad plan.
Sure. So, do you think that you'll ever get to that state, like where you're just settled and then you're just working and then going back home and then doing some random chores around the house? Like, I don't know.
I don't think I'll ever get that boring. Dude, right now working from home, like, all right, so things are starting to open up now finally, so it's not as bad as it was. But like, oh man, I was getting so depressed, dude. Like, it was just I would wake up. I have my desk with my computer in my room. It's actually I have my desktop, I have my work laptop, and I have my personal laptop. And then I have them all open at the same time so that I can like do whatever I need to do. But like I'll go upstairs, I'll brush my teeth, I'll grab some water, I'll make a bagel, I'll go back downstairs and just sit in my room and work for like 8 hours. And then I'll go upstairs and get something to eat for dinner, and then I'll go back downstairs in my room and sit. And oh man, yeah. I could never like I did it out of necessity because I needed to stay at home, stay quarantined and things like that. But like, oh man, no. Like I'm sure I'll have those days where I just go to work, go home, and like, mow the lawn or something like that. After my youth has faded me. But nah, I definitely think I'll stay active and things like that,
But the thing is, I feel like a lot of younger, I don't know if that's a thing, but I feel like the younger you are, the more you feel like you have your life and you're gonna do all these things as you grow up, but the older population dictates otherwise. So it's like, it's the exception to not be doing what your dad is doing, basically. So it's like, I feel like when people get older, they settle into their families and then they sort of get to that sort of state where it's work and then house, yeah. But it's not that often that you see other people in that stage of their life.
That's fair. I feel like, so my dad's 61, something like that.
Oh.
So he's older now, and I don't know very many other people his age doing that. So yeah, maybe that is kind of the exception. I don't really have anything else to compare it to. Like I don't know what like my friends' parents do after work. I don't know if they just go to work and go home. That just sounds so boring to me. And maybe it's because I'm young right now, but that I feel like I can't do that. I'll go nuts.
I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully we don't.
Maybe I'll be absolved in this business plan that I come up with, and I'll be too busy to ever leave the office.
I mean, when you're doing something that's like extraordinary, a lot of the creators that I mentioned, that's how they live.
Right.
It's like work, get things done, and then.
But when you get to that point in your life and you finally like fostered this idea that you had into something physical. It's work for sure, but like it's something that you're so passionate about that like you don't mind putting in 90 hours a week to work on the thing. You know what I mean? So
it's crazy. Like here, like Musk's mentioned that it's like 80, 100, whatever amount of hours a week that he puts in, and it's like even now, like just think about it. To put 80 hours a week, right? That means excluding the weekend, right? That means that you're spending
probably not excluding the weekend.
yeah, I know. Like just towards those 5 days, right? That's 16-hour days. So even if you did include the weekends, that's still, I'm sure that you would have to put in 16-hour days before that weekend came in too. So it's like you're not even getting the proper amount of sleep, and you're just.
Are you getting a proper amount of sleep? Because I get like 5 hours of sleep a night. Yeah.
How do you function? Like, don't you feel like sleepy when you're trying to look at the screen and all that stuff? No.
No.
There's coffee. No coffee?
Nah, Red Bull.
Red Bull.
Yeah,
energy.
gives you wings, dude.
Dude, that's scary. I'm scared of those things. I've heard a lot of bad things about him, Ian.
People abuse it. People that are like predisposed to like heart failure and things like that shouldn't be drinking it too, or people that drink like 20 in a day and things like that. Like you know, if you exercise, if you drink water and things like that, you'll be fine. Don't worry about
But
it.
don't you feel scared that it'll get to a point where you're dependent on it?
Oh, I am. 100%. We're already there. We are already there.
Dude, doesn't that scare you?
Yeah. I mean, people, I don't think it's any different than people having a dependency on coffee.
Yeah.
Like, the coffee industry is insane.
Yeah.
Insane. Like, a lot of these YouTubers that I watch that are like, you know, self-made millionaires or whatever, they all talk about like how frugal they are, and that's why that they're millionaires. Like they kind of hoard onto their money and like make a lot of decisions to make sure that they're getting the best deal. Almost all of them, they do not buy coffee at like Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, like anywhere that makes it. They buy like great value coffee from like Walmart or something like that, and it saves them so much money.
Yeah.
Because like if you think about it, right, if you get like a medium coffee Monday through Friday, let's call it $2 to make it even, right? That's $10 a week times 52 weeks.
Yeah.
Like that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money that you're wasting on coffee, and most people that are like truly dependent on coffee will have multiple in a day.
Yeah.
So they'll have like 2 or 3 coffees in a day.
Yeah, and it's not even. I think you said $2 for the coffee, right?
It's probably.
It's definitely
We'll like Starbucks get like $10 for.
Yes, it's definitely more. You're not, if you're paying $2 for coffee in the States here, that's a deal.
Yeah.
'Cause, I don't know. Like I've been looking at. There was a book that mentioned exactly what you were talking about, where it's like the amount of money that we spend on little things, they add up very quickly.
Yeah, they do. Like the amount of money that you can save from like meal prepping for the week instead of buying out lunch. Like you go to Subway and get a sandwich, they're not $5 foot long, 100%. Like you're gonna go there, you'll get a bag of chips or whatever. It'll be like $10, $12.
Yeah.
You know, $10 a week.
Yeah.
$50.
Yeah.
$50 for the week. So it's nuts.
Yeah. So speaking of being frugal and all that stuff, have you taken that into consideration, like saving and making sure not to go crazy?
Yeah, I think that the quarantine has helped a bunch. You know, because like at points in college I was kind of struggling, right? Because like I had my car payment that I had to pay for, so like I was working to pay for that and things like that. So there were times where I didn't have a lot of money in my account and had to think about what I needed to buy. And then, you know, all of a sudden I'm a software developer, and you know I get that first paycheck and I've had more money in my account than I've ever had in my entire life. Like I got one paycheck and I've never had that much money in my account. And like so then you're like, oh cool, like. You know, I really like this place. I'm gonna go buy a sandwich here because, like, I haven't had it in a long time. Because, like, I know buy that, and then you get into a habit.
Yeah.
And you're just like, because it's so much easier. Because I don't want to go home after working all day and then make my lunch for the next day or whatever. But like, spending that amount of effort definitely saves money. So, kind of being able to break those habits during quarantine is definitely good. I put away a lot more money, a lot more money now. So. I'm hoping that I'm sure that once things open up, I'm gonna be going out because like I miss going out and getting a beer with people after work. But you know, I'm hoping that some of these money saving things will stick with me.
That's one of the things that they mentioned about the economy reopening. And they're like, it's not going to be the same because we're creatures of habit. And
Yeah.
that 2 month span that we had with everything closed, a lot of people are going to
People are
try
gonna
to
change.
Yeah.
I'm sure that when things open up, a bunch of people are just gonna be like, well, so there's kind of like two different groups in this, right? There's people kind of like us who not necessarily benefited from it, but didn't get affected by it. It's like, really, instead of just working at my desk at work, I work at my desk in my room. Like, really, nothing's changed for me. But there's been a ton of people who unfortunately, you know, got furloughed, got laid off, haven't been able to work, and those people are doing what they need to do. But I feel like now there's that group of people that didn't necessarily get affected by it and have a bunch of money in their savings account because they can't go out and spend it. And I feel like those people are just gonna feed the economy when things open up. They're gonna buy shit that they don't need. They're gonna go out to dinner every night for like the first month, like, and it'll be good. But yeah, I don't know what's gonna necessarily happen. Maybe people will fall back into those habits that they had, but some people won't be able to because now they don't have that job that they had before quarantine.
What are you going to do?
I'm definitely gonna go out with some people, man. Like I miss getting a beer on draft. Like it's fun. It's cool stuff to do. Like at Cumbies we used to do bowling like every other week or whatever, just to kind of hang out with people outside work, you know. And it was fun. It was a good time to do that. It was a way to like let off steam and, you know, talk to people on other teams that you may not have interacted with in a while. I'm switching to the UMass office now too, so that's in Shrewsbury. And I hear that they have a cafe, but like I'll probably end up just bringing my lunch. Like I'll probably end up, you know, eating like a granola bar or whatever for breakfast, but like bring my lunch too, just because it'll be easier. So that'll at least help me save some money. Because I was buying, the Cumberland Farms headquarters has a Cumberland Farms inside the office. They have like a convenience store, which is pretty neat. So that's where I got my Red Bull every morning. I would always buy sandwiches there, and it starts to add up. So bringing lunch will at least help a little bit once we get back to normal.
So speaking about that mentality about the economy reopening up and people are going to go crazy with since they didn't have that luxury for whatever amount of time, but they're just going to blow it, right? So have you thought about investing?
Yeah, man, like so many of these people are doing forex trading now, and I don't even know like much about it at all. I don't really know much about stocks or trading at all because like I've never had money to really put into it. I think I could make some intelligent guesses about what I think is gonna get big. I really don't know enough about it if it makes sense for me to start to invest in stuff like that. Like right now, I kind of just have my couple step plan to pay off my car and start paying down my student loans and things like that. So I mean, if it fits in my new budget, maybe I'll start throwing some money around in some different stocks. But I haven't given it too much thought.
Yeah, one of the things that they mentioned is that it's better to pay off whatever debt that you have because the interest accrued is probably less than what you're going to make off of the market or whatever investment that you make, unless you're for sure going to make more off of your investment. Then the better idea is just pay off those debts.
Right.
So now that you're out of school, you've been out of school for what, like a year and a half now?
A year.
So
yeah, a little, just over a year.
Yeah, just over a year. So how does it feel? I'm sure that you went through high school and all that stuff, so you spent more time in school than you have like free, you know? So
yeah.
How has that changed? How has that affected your lifestyle and all that stuff? So
it's weird because like most of my adult life has been spent in school. So I've always had that commitment to, you know, go to school, go to class, go do whatever. But now, like, the only responsibility I necessarily have is to go to work.
Yeah.
And I just got to go to work so I can pay for my stuff. And I don't have responsibility to, you know, get to practice after school. I don't have responsibility to go do my homework and things like that. Because like once most of the time, once it hits, you know, 4 or 5 o'clock, I'm done for the day. I can do whatever else I want. I don't have to go work on a project that I have due tonight at midnight that I procrastinated until today to do. You know, so it's been good. I feel like I have responsibilities still, but I feel like I have less things in the day that I necessarily need to work about, and it's like a big sigh of relief. It's really relaxing. I feel way less stressed out. Not to say when I don't get on a big project, it's not stressful, but it's been good. I feel like I can just kind of do more things that I like. I can go do whatever I want on the weekend because I don't have stuff to work on. It's been good.
So it's basically half the day working, right? So before it was for school, it was a couple of hours in class, and then most of the time was, I don't know, either rugby or whatever sport you were playing, and then homework, but in a couple of activities outside of there. So now it's just that time slot that you have committed is work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to those other 8 hours? Like, what do you do?
Sometimes I take a nap right after work. Sometimes I'll be working on something that just fries my brain because I've been thinking about it the whole day, and I'll just, I'll get to like 4 o'clock and I'll be like, I just need a nap. So I'll go take a nap, and sometimes I'll go play some golf with my dad after work. We'll play like 9 holes or something like that. I'll go disc golf with some friends. Maybe before the quarantine, I'll go meet up with some friends for a bite to eat, drink, something like that. But there's nothing necessarily slotted. I could slot that time for making some ideas for this new company, but yeah, no, there's nothing necessarily slotted, and I like that. I kind of just like not really having a schedule besides just go to work.
So I'm sure that at work there's a couple, like you said that the tech stack that you're working on right now, you're familiar with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So is there any part of it that you weren't familiar with that you had to put in extra time to sort of learn? Because I know that right now it's React, and what else is in this stack?
Yeah, so the 2 big ones that I work with are React and Node.js. So React for the front end, Node.js for the back end, for like the middleware, right? And then to me, it doesn't, like, whatever existing databases, if I don't need to spin up a new one, that's perfectly fine with me. I hate spinning up databases. But whatever database is there, so whether it be like an Oracle SQL, MySQL, MS SQL or whatever, doesn't really matter. I was pretty familiar, so how I got into React was through React Native, which is they're both made by Facebook. They're both web languages that React Native compiles into iOS and Android, but the syntax is slightly different. Like you don't have divs in React Native. You have like views and text tags and things like that. So it's different than having like your divs, your H1s, your normal HTML elements that you're used to. But it was similar enough. I didn't know React. I didn't even know JavaScript before I started React Native. I went straight into it. So I definitely had to brush up on like my normal vanilla JavaScript stuff. Like I had to figure out how arrays work, my array prototype functions like map, filter, reduce, those things. Figure out my different operators and all those things. I had to put a little bit more time into React because, like I said, it was different. I hadn't really even played with HTML or CSS before that either. I kind of just jumped straight in. But it's a huge community. There's so many people backing it. There's lots of tutorials on YouTube. I spent a lot of time on YouTube watching people make things and then trying to like replicate it and going back and watching and see how I did. Node.js I was more familiar with. Again, the vanilla JavaScript I had to kind of brush up on, but the core concepts of Node.js I kind of understood. The biggest thing that's in my stack, and I'm pushing on everybody now because I think it's great, is TypeScript, and that was a decent learning curve. Again, because I didn't know JavaScript that well, it wasn't. I don't think it was as tough for me to figure out as like a seasoned JavaScript developer, because the syntax is a little different. How you have to make your functions is slightly different, and I just kind of learned that way. Like I started with JavaScript for like 3 months, and then they were like, "Hey, learn TypeScript," so I did. But yeah, it was good. It was really good. I love TypeScript.
So how much time? The reason why I ask you this is to basically draw a sort of distribution of how much time you spend learning versus how much time you spend actually implementing that stuff, because you have to learn about it before you could actually use it. So Is that something you do on your off time where you're like,
I don't think those things are necessarily mutually exclusive.
okay.
There was some time allocated when I started at Cumberland, because I started as like a junior developer essentially. I was not even a day out of college when I started really. So the expectation was that I would spend some time learning. So just before we got like really into some projects, I did spend some time like taking lessons. Like I never finished any of them, but like I kind of brushed up on some stuff on Udemy courses and things like that. But I spent a lot of time outside of work just like learning about the environment, like learning what people are doing within these tech stacks, learning how, like right when I started, React went from class-based components to functional components, which is completely different because they're functions that return JSX instead of classes that have JSX. So like just being on YouTube, being on Reddit, being on the React developer blogs, being on all these things and seeing what all these people are doing. A lot of people that I watch are like freelancers because they don't have a company saying do this please.
Yeah.
So a lot of people I watch that are freelancers are like, hey, I saw this thing, I'm gonna try it out. Wow, it's sweet, or wow, it sucks. But I spend a lot of time doing that. Like, but I have fun doing it, so it's not necessarily me doing it for work. It's me doing it to like just stay on top of things and my own enjoyment. But I spend a lot of time outside work researching that stuff.
So what I get from that is that it's not really a linear path of learning.
No, right? Because like when you're trying to solve a problem, right? You have different ways that you can start. You can write out all your stuff. Here's what I think I'm gonna need to do. You can kind of just jump right into it, and you may think that you know what you're doing, and you may start doing it, and then you may run into a problem, right? Like, here's how I've done everything in the past. I'm gonna start my website, blah blah blah. I'm gonna do this thing. How do I get this element all the way over here? Or like, how am I gonna feed this data from this data source when users get to this page or something like that? And that may be something that you need to look up on the job. And that's something that was kind of like a gray area to me, going from like school where the whole thing is you're learning programming, you're learning programming concepts. So like, I thought that the expectation was, we're paying you to know this, not we're paying you to learn this.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the same thing. Like you're paid to solve the problem, and part of solving the problem is learning how to solve the problem if it's a new problem to you, right? Because if it wasn't, they would just pay the guy that knows how to solve all these problems. Like there are things that come up every single day, so they want somebody that has good problem solving skills to be able to get back to here's the new thing, here's how I learned it, now we can implement it, and now I've satisfied the project requirement. So kind of those things happen at the same time as implementation and learning.
So one of the things that you mentioned is that school, right? It's you're sort of learning for learning, right? It's like a lot of the things that they told us to implement, or a lot of the things that we went through is for the sake of knowing that that is an actual thing and that you can use it, right? Whereas the environment that you're in right now, it's like you have a problem and then just figure out how to solve it, whether that be a new thing or something that you already know, just solve it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So keeping that in mind, right, do you think it would be better to sort of learn what your tools can do, right? So learn that React has, I don't know, you said it uses functional components instead of object
class components,
right? And that there's probably a bunch of like nits and like bells and whistles that you have to go through to understand like React completely, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you think it would be better to sort of learn about React for React and then start working and then figure out the other stuff that needs to happen? Or do you think it would be better to just go in and just try to solve a problem at first and then learn whatever you need to learn on the path to solving the problem? The question makes sense.
Yeah, so I think I'm going to try and make an analogy, and I hope it's not a weak analogy. Do you think that being in a pit crew for NASCAR, right, your main job is take the wheels off when they come through, right? If you know how to take the wheels off and put the new wheels on, you're good to go. That satisfies the problem, right? If you learn what the car sounds like when like something bad's gonna happen, like it's gonna have an engine failure or something like that, or like, you know, when he's coming in the brake sounds squeaky, like technically your job is to just, you know, take the wheels off, put the new wheels on. But like as you go on to be better at your job, you kind of learn different things as you go on to be better at that thing. You don't necessarily need to know everything about everything when you start off. I think it's unrealistic to do that, especially in software development. I think it's unrealistic to expect anyone to know every single piece of the tool that they're using. I don't even think the React core team knows like one specific person on the React core team doesn't necessarily know every nook and cranny of React because it's such a big project. They probably have an easier time finding that thing that they're looking for than I would because I didn't build the thing. But I think that kind of just jumping into it and learning what you need to learn as you go on is better for the business that you're working for because you're solving the problem to help that business need quicker than it would be for you to say, I'm going to learn every single thing about React before I can build you this website. You know?
So it's quicker to, well, yeah, so basically from what you're saying, it's quick, like with the car analogy, right? You knowing those extra things is good, but
it satisfies the requirement for you to be able to change the tires.
Yeah.
Right? It satisfies the requirement for me to know how to spin up a React app. But as I go on, it's easier for me to do tuning to like, you know, do my own custom configs and do my own this and do my own starting scripts and things like that. Like as I've solved these problems, finding more efficient ways to do it and finding better ways to do it, or finding out how to solve a new thing that I didn't know at the time.
And that's one of the reasons why what's it called? The Agile is so beautiful. It's like you just try to solve it whatever way you could solve it in the first 2 weeks, and then afterwards you iterate to a better version. So yeah, I'd say I agree with that. But I definitely find it useful to sort of at least skim through at like the sort of things that you can do with whatever tool you're using. So
yeah, I think so. But I think that's also kind of why I try and keep up with these like more well-known developers, like these freelancers and stuff like that, because like I may always do this thing this one way, and then I may see somebody do this specific thing and go, that's a cool way to do that, and then, you know, that gives me an opportunity to try it. It's really just like how best you learn. I'm more of a visual learner. I need to watch somebody do something rather than reading a document.
Yeah. But what happens if, because making videos is expensive, right? It's definitely more expensive than making a book, because for the video you have to have the person actually do the action, and then afterwards the person has to edit the video and upload it, right? Whereas making the book, you type it and it's ready, it's available online. So what happens when there's no one to make that video? What happens if...
Books are stagnant though, right? Books are static data. Like after the book's been published, you can't go back and change it. You can just put out a new book. The cool thing about offerings like Udemy and Pluralsight and all these things is once you buy a class, it benefits the teacher who's showing you that language or that thing to update their class. So like you buy it one time for $50, okay? You learn it, you go through, they spent the time to edit it or whatever, they uploaded it to Udemy, it was vetted, Udemy put it out, they get money every time people buy it and every time people watch it. Makes sense for them to for example, once React went from class components to functional components, the class that I had gave me an update saying some new videos have been added to this set. If I bought a textbook, I'm out of luck. I already bought the textbook. I only have stuff about class components now. And the rest of the community is going to functional components, and if I never went online to try and figure that stuff out, I just have this book that was written whenever it was written, right? So I think that there's a huge benefit to being able to have that platform to update things, because things update so quickly in this field.
So it's live rather than just whatever was written at that time.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Staying updated. I personally go for the books.
Yeah.
but I
I
see
don't-
your point. Yeah.
I can learn from books. I can learn from documentation. It's easier for me to watch somebody do it.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely but you know what I hate about actually watching someone do is like, you could have the exact same thing as a person, and then your version doesn't work. That's happened to me multiple times.
That's why containers are so great.
Yeah.
Because then the only variables that you have are just your container configuration and the code,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because then the system is out of the equation.
Yeah. So. But that one thing that I was trying to do with a mobile app. Well, I was trying to make a mobile app, but that's in the past. You can't really containerize a mobile app, right? Because I don't think that.
I don't personally know. I don't think so. I mean, you could containerize the backend for it, right? Like whatever
Yeah.
requests that it makes. But the app itself, no. But like, kind of. I mean, like the app store is the repository for it. So if you think about it like a container repository, when you update that version, they're just gonna download the new one on their phone. So it's not a container, but it almost serves the same problem. I mean, the problem that it doesn't solve is like different versions of iOS or Android, like how your apps kind of function. And I think that would be really cool to be able to solve that, so that you have that feature set that was available to you at the time that that container image was built. I think that would be awesome. But I don't personally know if you can do that. I don't think that you would be able to virtualize on the phone. I have no idea.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was looking into at the time.
Is that our business?
Yeah.
Is that what
Containerize those things. They had like a hack way of doing it, but I don't know. It was
Well,
very
containers
small,
work on a they're essentially a Linux virtual machine
Yeah.
that can run different operating systems. So I don't know if the phone has the virtualization capabilities that you would need to even run that architecture. I don't know enough about how the internals of the phone actually work.
Well, the virtualization, I wasn't sort of going for the mobile part of it. It was more of the desktop. So having, you see how you're able to have an iOS emulator whenever you're doing iOS development and all that stuff, or Android emulator, blah blah blah. So a container for so that you could, I don't know, like maybe it would be slow for the development because every time you make a change you'd have to build build it again. Yeah, that would be kind of slow. But I don't know. I haven't done enough mobile development to know if there's an issue with different system configurations and all that stuff. So yeah.
I mean, when you run an emulator, it's a virtualized device anyway. And it's always going to be the same because you have to download a specific version of either Android or iOS when you create the emulator. It was almost a container, if you think about it, right?
But what happens when someone on your team is running like Android 9 or Android 10 and then you're running Android 8?
Well, that's why like in your, I don't know if it's your manifest XML or whatever configuration file says what minimum version your app supports. So when you load the app for development, it may say that it'll either, depending on how you build it, it'll either crash or say that it's not supported on that version, and that's kind of why that feature was built in. So like when you do just a standard one, like not using like a cross-platform language, when you build an Android app, it'll ask you what lowest version of Android you want to develop for, so that you have all those files working for it.
So are you doing any mobile development for UMass? Or is it just
there's a project that they want me to do for building an asset management application, like a mobile app, so that they can scan like a barcode or a QR code, and then that gets added to the database so that we can track all those assets. But that's kind of on the that's like
later now?
Yeah, well it's on the back burner right now for some other projects that we're working on.
Well, would you really need to make it a mobile app? Can't you just make it like a web app and then you take a picture?
Take a picture with your laptop?
Not your laptop. You have like a mobile interface for it. It's not like you can't. I mean, they have a bunch of mobile versions for things.
Yeah, but like the how would the camera work for that? I'm sure that you can access it, but like, I don't know, I feel like it'd be a better user experience for it to be an application.
It would.
In my opinion.
It definitely would. But it would take longer too, though,
Why?
because web is web. It's like there's so many things for fast web development. All you have to do is worry about the JS, HTML, and CSS. Of course, the backend, but for the phone, you'd be using the same backend, whether you have a mobile app or a web mobile, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, going back to the tech stack that you'd be using, it'd probably just be the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
We're all building React Native. Cross-platform. Right, because there's no need for it to be rendered in a browser because it's not going to be a mobile and desktop app because the main feature of it is that scanning. So even if you don't have, for one, I think it's awkward to like hold your laptop, right, or like have to take a picture on your phone and then upload it to your computer and then have that scan through. I think that it makes the most sense. I think all the users are going to use their phone to scan the thing when they go to give that asset to the customer. So I don't think that there's necessarily a need for it to be a web-based.
It definitely is quicker. And you just click on the app and you boop.
Then you're good.
And you're good to go.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So what do you miss most about school? Like now that you're out?
I miss the social aspect. Like yeah, there was a ton of work, a ton of homework, and it was stressful at times. But I miss just like leaving class and like just being like, hey, you wanna go disc golf? You wanna go? Let's go chill at the rugby dell. Like let's just go do stupid stuff after class. Like I'll hold off this project tonight. I kind of need a break. Let's hang out with some friends. And I miss just like that kind of community, like having that many people around you that like want to hang out and do things. That was the best. That was awesome.
Yeah, I feel like that in school in general. Like now you have to sort of put in that extra effort to actually go meet people and do those kind of activities. Whereas in the classroom, it's like you're in that environment already, so you're
right.
It's I don't know. It's
I have to put in effort to text somebody and be like, hey, let's come hang out instead of like us just both being in class being like, hey, let's get out of here, let's go do something.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely an interesting part of life as you're getting older. It's like I don't know. The older I get, personally, the more I understand things from my parents' point of view.
Absolutely.
Like as kids, we had so many friends and we had so many social things, and like your parents, it's not as many as you know.
Right.
And as you're getting older, you realize that
you understand. It's just like that's just how it is. You know.
Yeah, it'd be like that.
It's sad. Yeah. It's sad to think like that, but I mean, it is what it is. It's part of growing up.
Yeah.
It's not to say that some parents don't have a bunch of friends and a big social life, but I mean, parents specifically, you kind of have that responsibility to like take care of your kids, take care of your house and stuff like that. But
the amount of effort that you put into that kind of stuff, it gets to a point where it's not worth the effort. So it's like the trade-offs aren't. But that's life, man.
Mm-hmm. You're right. So,
what have you been doing to stay active, Ian? You had rugby before, but now what's the
Dude,
word?
I know, and it sucks. And I really, like, the Providence team hit me up, like, Art hit me up so many times to try and join Providence Rugby, and I so would. If there wasn't a large chance of me getting a concussion and forgetting how to do the things that make me money, like, I absolutely would. It was so awesome. Yeah. I really regret only doing it for 1 year. Yeah. But, no, I've been doing some stuff. Before the quarantine, I was going to the gym like 4 or 5 times a week. Not doing anything crazy, just like on the stationary bike, lifting some stuff. It felt good. It felt good to get back into that kind of a rhythm, that routine. But now, like during quarantine, it's been tough to stay active. I started just doing some like push-ups and sit-ups in my room, bro, like just something. But yeah, now that things are starting to open up, the best way for me to like maintain my weight is to run. and I like running when I'm in shape.
Yeah.
But when I'm not in shape, like, oh man, it's so much effort for me to like get up in the morning and start running, and I'm like, bro, I used to be able to run like 5 miles no problem, and now I'm like huffing and puffing, put my shoes on, I'm like, oh god, it's tough. It's tough getting back in shape, but
that's one of the tough aspects of breaking a habit. It's like once you stop it and then you try to go back in, it's like the stuff that you were able to do before, it's sort of disappointing that you can't.
Yeah, because you remember, you're like, yeah, dude, I used to be able to lift that no problem, and then you get in there and you're like, absolutely not, and you just feel like a worse version of yourself. So,
yeah.
Oh, it's tough.
And that's the scare, but I feel like it's a good lesson because once you build it back up again, you'll be more scared to drop it.
That's fair.
You know?
Yeah, 100%.
So it's definitely cool to just experience different things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, Ian, what's been up?
Not much.
2020, how's it been treating you?
I can't complain that much, man. I can't complain that much. Like I said before, like this whole pandemic has affected people much worse than me. So I can't complain. I can't complain. You know, I started a new job, all remote. It's been going well. You know, playing games with some friends online, just trying to stay in contact with people. But man, it's been a boring year to start. I just haven't been able to get outside and do anything at all and meet up with people. So.
Speaking of games, did you hear about the PS5?
I did.
You going for it? Or?
Bro, probably the only reason I'm gonna get that is for Last of Us.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to, but I didn't want to like specifically bring it up. But yeah.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Cause actually, me and a friend from Cumbies, we played through God of War a little while ago. Cause I had never played the new God of War because I didn't get a PS4, and that was awesome, and I was like that story is insane. And then he's like, do you want another game that's like a really, really good story? And I was like, sure. And he's like, have you ever played The Last of Us? And I was like, no, I've never played it. And like, dude, I was anxious the whole time playing that game. I pressed the listen button. I pressed it all the time.
Yeah.
But oh man, that story was crazy. And then like seeing the trailer for it, I'm super excited. Like even if I just buy the PS5 and I just play that game, like worth the money.
The thing is, it's not out on. I don't know when it's gonna come out on PS5.
Oh, that's it's coming out on PS4.
Yeah. So
that's facts.
So if you get it, you're gonna have to wait like a year or I don't know, however long it takes to move it.
That's messed up if they don't. I feel like that should be a release title for the PS5. They should have waited. Yeah. I feel like that would have brought people to the game, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah, definitely. But even The Last of Us, it was a beautiful, from start to finish, it was a beautiful game. You know?
It was awesome.
Did you play it through the end?
Yeah.
Like you remember the end?
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel about that? The sacrifice one person for many, or like?
I mean, that specific question's been something that philosophers have debated for so many years. I can't say that I wouldn't have done the same thing, right? So full spoilers. Full spoilers. I can't say that I wouldn't. Like making that emotional connection. It's one thing to be on the outside and saying like, hey, if you sacrifice this little girl, there's gonna be no more zombies, we'll be fine. But then you make an emotional connection, and instead of like you just having this vial that's this antidote, and you give it to some person and say, here's my sacrifice, right? Like that's a living person that you trekked across the United States in post-apocalyptic world and like fought zombies together, and man, yeah, I can't say that I wouldn't have made the same choice.
And that's the beautiful thing about the game. It's like even though it's a game, you felt like
I felt like I was there.
Yeah,
yeah, 100%.
It was a beautiful story, and that last part just hit me. Like it was like, boom.
And I love the way that they depicted it too. Like, so that fight to get in there, to get to the lab table was insane. I stealthed all of them. Small flex. I stealthed all of them. I didn't know there was a single person. I took my time. I stealthed all of them. But like the way that they told that, right? So like you had the parts that you were playing, then you get into the room and you don't see when you're talking to the scientist in the last time. You just wake up in the car.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That was amazing. That was amazing. I love games like that. But yeah, while we were thinking about this, so since that's not a PS5 title, Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool too.
That is hands down the best Spider-Man suit. Hands down the best Spider-Man suit. Oh man.
It's interesting. It's the most interesting part that I thought was they have the version without the CD now. Well, they have
Just
they have
the digital
two options.
download, you
Yeah,
mean?
yeah. So
What's your take on that? Do you like having the physical disc or do you like?
I've never bought a digital game like for
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I definitely think that it's the way to go, but personally I've never done it.
On my Switch, I only have digital downloads.
Yeah.
I only have digital downloads. I bought more storage for it because I know that I'm just gonna do digital downloads. Cause like I feel like stuff like GameStop, like people are just not going there
Yeah.
anymore. They're going
It's
there.
not needed.
They're going there way less.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and I see that like I definitely see the point of not having CDs anymore. It's just like you don't even have to go to the store. You don't have to wait.
you don't have to
order,
worry about
yeah.
scratching the disc and it not working again. Like you're always gonna have a working copy. You can download it onto a new thing if you sign into your account. Like you're always gonna have access to it. So
Yeah. But I don't know. Something about it's the same argument about books versus ebooks. You know.
I love audiobooks, dude. I can't read books anymore. I get so tired like reading the text. I love audiobooks though. I listened to Ready Player One on audiobook.
I saw a movie about that book. Yeah.
I'm gonna
The
be
book
that.
is
I'm
better.
gonna be that guy. The book is way better.
Yeah.
It tells a different story. It's way better.
So audiobooks, is that the only sort of like, so you don't do books at all, you're just like fuck books?
Yeah, I don't really read. I read The Hunt for Zero Point physically.
What's that
Like I
about?
physically read the book. It was about this scientist that got brought into like. So it's supposed to be a real story. It's about this scientist that got brought into like this secret part of Area 51. Like that's a secret subset that actually nobody knows about in Area 51, and they wanted him to like. They like captured an alien ship, and they wanted him to re-engineer the anti-gravity device that was in it. It was really good actually. It took me so long to read. Like I used to read books a lot in middle school, and I don't anymore. Like that, I feel like that's just not how we consume media. Like I feel like things like Facebook and like TMZ online blog posts, they're like all snapshotted of the things that you need.
Yeah.
So like our attention spans are
Yeah.
like this big. So I don't have like the attention span to sit there and flip through pages. So it took me like 3 months to read that book. So it was good. I do read a lot of like articles online, like Medium posts and things like that about like
Medium.
yeah, I love Medium, man. I love Medium. So I like that's another way that I stay up on some tech stuff too. But I like reading those. But again, those are snapshotted. Those are like a page, 2 pages, like. So.
But going back to the attention span stuff that you're saying, it's like, like I definitely agree with you that it's definitely easier to sort of go on Facebook and then get that snippet of information, and then it's definitely more. It's not as big of a commitment, right? So
But you find yourself spending so much time on there because like the individual commitment as you scroll is so small. But like again, those things add up. The small things add up. Like it's just like, oh yeah, I read a post about this. Oh, crazy person in my town. Oh, whatever, right? But then like those snapshots, like each one was just that much of your attention span, so you can kind of just segment it and keep going. But like if you saw all that on one big thing and had to like, I'm not reading that. I'm not reading any of that. So, which is pretty crazy.
But just imagine how much you've lost from it. Like it's true that you get the summary of it. You got the build up, right? You got the main part of it, but I feel like there's still much to learn from like the start and not just the essential to it, you know?
I think everybody interprets things differently.
Mm-hmm.
So like reading snapshot data, summary data, synopsis, stuff like that, you're kind of only getting the author's point of view. So like when you're reading something like that book, Hunt for Zero Point, like if you got the synopsis, you're reading how that person summarized the book, instead of like picking out those fine details and like coming up with what that book was about for yourself. Which is definitely important. And I agree. I think that is something that's getting lost. I don't see how we fix that unless we get rid of these things.
Yeah, that's scary. It's dude, we live in interesting times. Yes, sir.
2 seconds in.